Yes, good evening and welcome to Brisbane here. You can see Dan Biggar alongside me. We've just been hearing from Andy Farrell, from Joe Schmidt, as both of them naming their teams for the first test this Saturday. And we're going to chat a little bit about the Lions squad. And I think the opening of the press conference, the first question I put to Andy Farrell was about that back row. Tom Curry getting the number 7 shirt, and that's causing a lot of debate, a lot of discussion in advance of this as to whether he might go with Curry, Van der Fleer, or indeed Jac Morgan. What have you made of it, Dan Biggar?
Do you know what? I am so glad, Ellie, that the team has been named, because I've fed up for the last however many weeks, months of people's, oh, this is my team or his team or her team, etc. So at least now the team's been named. Let's dissect and let's talk about the team now and get behind this group. In terms of the back row, I think that was the most competitive, I suppose, part of the team that we spoke about pre-match, and I think Jac Morgan can find himself really hard done by. Yes, I'm probably going to find a little bit of bias given that he's the only Welshman on tour, but I just think that back row was so hard. That number 7, you could have picked Earl, you could have picked Van der Fleer, you could have picked Morgan, Curry, Pollock, and nobody would have really complained. And I think that shows the strength and depth of that position. But Jac Morgan, who I thought has been outstanding on tour, every time he's put the jersey on, he's been brilliant. So I think he can count himself really unlucky. Interesting, in his press conference, Andy Farrell sort of said, well, Tom Curry, we know what sort of test match animal he is. And I think you look at that back row combination of Byrne, Curry and Jack Conan, they've all been there, done it for the Lions before. They've all been there in big moments, in big games. And I think he actually referred to Tadhg Beirne as big games in big games. And I think that's why he's gone for that combination in that back row. But Jac Morgan absolutely can count himself really unlucky. I
will say I don't think that is your Welsh bias speaking. I think a lot of people at home will probably agree. He has been outstanding, a player of the match performance against the Queensland Reds. But that was another question put to Andy Farrell was, when making these decisions, how much of that is based on what we've seen on tour so far and how much of that is based on past experience? But you'd have to say he is, in this case, leaning towards people who he knows have been there and done it before.
I think that's a big thing. I think when he goes to sleep tomorrow night, and I think he want to tick off as many people in that 23 who he thinks he hasn't got to worry about on match day. And I think given that his Irish connection, given that people, Tom Curry who's been there, done it and proven himself time and time again, I just think that maybe, because he said in the press conference he was so close, Jac Morgan, to getting the nod.
This close, he said.
He actually said this close. So I kind of think, well, was that the difference between this close playing and this close not playing from Jac Morgan, in terms of Tom Curry's been there in a Lions shirt, in a Lions test series before, and has proved himself. And he also said he's kind of like the glue, isn't he? In terms of the engine, in terms of just chasing, harrying, just putting himself where other people don't want to, which allows Jac Morgan to win those hard yards, allow Tadhg Beirne to run the line out in terms of winning ball, stealing opposition ball, jackling threat as well. I think Tadhg Beirne as well. I think the big toss-up was between Chesham and Tadhg Beirne.
Yeah, he was asked that question again today, wasn't he?
I think he sort of said he's a bit more of a ball player and a link player. But I also think yes, Chesham's not bad over the ball, but the ability for Tadhg Beirne to get over the ball, pinch as much ball as possible, and sort of stop the Wallabies is a big thing as well. Because I expect the Lions to have a fair share of the ball, and I think you look at the weapons that the Wallabies have got in Swahili, Ikitau, Jorgensen, these guys, and you don't want to give them as much in, so you want the ball back as quickly as possible, and that's maybe why he's gone for Tadhg Beirne and Curry.
Let's talk about the midfield then, because this was also a big talking point in the build-up today. We know Gary Ringrose unavailable. Before that, was he going to go with an Aki-Ringrose combo, or was he going to go with the Scottish combination of Tui Pelotu and Hugh Jones, which is what he's done with Bundy Aki on the bench? So what are your thoughts on that?
I just think it's exactly that, Ellie. I think if Gary Ringrose was fit, I think he goes Aki and Ringrose. And I just think that probably given Ringrose's injury, it's kind of almost forced his hand. He's almost made Bundy Aki almost drop to the bench and add something from 55, 60 minutes. And what you've got in not just your 12-13 partnership, but you've got that in terms of Finn Russell as well. And we spoke to Sione just after the AUNZ match,
yep.
And he sort of said he already knows where Finn's going to be. without even looking, he knows that where Finn's going to be, his movements. He knows Hugh Jones, what lines he's going to run off him, where he wants the ball. Does he want it early? Does he want it late? And I just think starting out in a big test match, you just want that familiarity, and you want the team to get moving and to get going and find some flow. And I think starting with 10, 12, 13 from the same country is going to be a big advantage. And I think you've got what you forget is you've got Bundyaki, who's a very different 12 to Sione Tuipulotu. If the game is tight, or if they need to find some advantage line or some gain line later on, there's very few better in world rugby than him coming off the bench against a tired Aussie defence after 60 minutes.
You'd have to say there is a real buzz here now that the team has been named. Just finally, Dan, let's touch on the Aussies. A couple of big players missing, but I think the headline has to be Tom Lynagh starting at 10. He's been capped 3 times for the Wallabies so far, but only off the bench. His dad, Michael Lynagh, has been there and done it all before. So what do you make of his inclusion?
He's got big boots to fill, hasn't he? Fair play, he has got big boots to fill. His father was a half-decent player, shall we say. Look, it's a huge test, isn't it? It's a huge ask for a youngish guy to come in, his first test start against the Lions, against the quality of players that in the cauldron that's going to be Suncorp Stadium on Saturday evening. I also feel like he's been dealt a little bit of a tough call, because you look at who's missing from that Wallabies pack in particular: Tupou, Skelton, Valentini. Yeah. Now, we've spoken in the week about probably the 9 and 10 is a big advantage for the Lions in terms of the experience, the world-class players that they've got. Now you're asking someone who's coming in their first test to manage a game, to challenge the Lions without 3 of your biggest power and your most powerful players in that pack. So it's not an easy job when you're 9 and 10 at international level, when you're on the back foot. If Skelton, Valentini, Tupou plays, does that give Tom Lynagh a better chance of controlling the game and stamping his authority on the game? I think so. So I think you're going to have to see. But speaking to a few of the Wallaby guys, he's a tough little cookie. Puts himself where it hurts, gets stuck in, a brilliant goal kicker, be kicking at 90% for the Reds. So if it comes down to goal kicking, you'd fancy he's going to be there or thereabouts. Really good game manager for a young 10, but it's certainly going to be tested with that back row. I'd imagine they'll be not giving him a huge amount of space on Saturday night at Suncorp.
It's funny you saying he's a tough cookie, because hearing from Joe Schmidt earlier, he said he puts himself in places that he shouldn't to his detriment, but that he has a real confidence about him and that this is his home pitch. He plays for the Reds, so he's used to playing at the Suncorp. It's a pitch he knows well, and they're backing him. They've got every confidence in him. So it's fascinating, really, really exciting. Thank you for your thoughts, Dan. Plenty more reaction coming from the Lions camp here today as we look ahead to the first test between the Lions and Australia. It is on Saturday, it is at the Suncorp Stadium, and it is live on Sky Sports.